Hi, my name is Szymon, I'm a filmmaker and also DaVinci Resolve trainer. Today I'd like to say a few words about Loupedeck and more specifically about the Loupedeck CT. That is this little console for post-production. Until now, Loupedeck has worked mainly with Adobe applications. However, for some time now, Loupedeck CT also works with DaVinci Resolve. So this is what I want to talk about, how to configure it for Resolve, and thus using Loupedeck with DaVinci Resolve even makes sense. So let's see how it works. We are on the Loupedeck website. The first steps is to download the software to install the console. Custom profiles allow you to create your own profiles for any of your installed software. There are also a range of example custom profiles here on the Loupedeck website which can be installed. And of course, now it works with DaVinci Resolve. Device settings in the Loupedeck software allows installs these custom profiles as well as use a downloaded profile or export my own profile to save or share with other users. Unlike a plugin, custom profiles rely on keyboard shortcuts, so Loupedeck says clearly that there is no possibility for color grading in DaVinci Resolve. What does it mean? Basically, we can only map Loupedeck for keyboard shortcuts in Resolve, working alongside your mouse and virtually replacing the keyboard. Unfortunately, this doesn't give full control over the application because Loupedeck don't have access to API, Application Programming Interface from Blackmagic. I understand that although Loupedeck have spoken to Blackmagic, this hasn't been made available. One of the reasons might be because Blackmagic see Loupedeck CT as a competitive product for their hardware solutions, such as the Blackmagic keyboard. But honestly, with the limitations of not having access to the API, at the moment Loupedeck cannot really compete with any Blackmagic panel where you can work without taking your eyes off the screen. However, this does not mean that there is no possibility of using Loupedeck CT in the color page. It only means these possibilities are limited. The Loupedeck CT easily competes with the Blackmagic keyboard for quick edit operations, and by the way, the keyboard is much more expensive. Looking at the Loupedeck edit options, almost everything we do from the Blackmagic keyboard can be done with Loupedeck CT. What's more, with Loupedeck CT we can map a lot more operations. As well, if you work on a few different applications, and who doesn't, it's certainly an attractive solution. So let's see what we can do in Resolve. I will be using my custom profile, which is a modified version of the one created by Loupedeck team. I tweaked it to minimize the use of mouse and keyboard as much as possible. I've also added the shortcuts I use most often in Resolve. I will start with the media page where we import content. The first thing to do is to browse the content and then import selected shots to the software. A very important piece of work with audiovisual content because this is the beginning of our edit. According to good practice, each clip should be viewed to familiarize yourself with the content. I have a drone footage from Italy here. Now I would like to review these clips and then import them into Resolve. I only need Loupedeck console for this job. I mapped the knobs, one with JKL to move within a clip, another one to move between shots, wheel touch button to play, stop and importing the clip, and mark in and mark out for round buttons 7 and 8. I set these shortcuts as they are the most common operations when viewing and importing content. So I have a folder with shots here. I can jump between them. I can play. I can work with JKL. And if I'm happy with it, I hit the import button on the wheel and the footage ends up in media pool. I can go to the next one, watch it, play faster, play slower. This shot is quite long, so I could separate 2 clips within this one. To do this, I will use in-out markers. Here I set out point and here I mark in point. When I hit import, only the selected piece will be imported. I'm working on the same clip and now I can choose another piece, and again I mark in, hit play, watch and mark out at the right time. When I'm ready, I can simply drop this clip into media pool and so on. So as you can see, the right configuration of shortcuts set up on Loupedeck allows viewing and importing content quickly and efficiently. I will go to edit page now. It is worth adding that shortcuts can also navigate between software sections. I linked each Resolve page with a combination of function key and an individual page number in the software. So function and 4 will lead me to edit tab. My layout of shortcuts or tools, known as a workspace, is different for each tab of the program. I'm in edit page now. I use a knob to select clips or folders in the media pool. I then can watch the clip in the preview window by hitting enter key on Loupedeck. I can fast forward, rewind, and of course I can import it into the timeline. Just like the media page, I can do all these operations just using Loupedeck CT. I've set the shortcuts for circle button 1 to jump between source window, where I watch media pool content, and timeline preview window, where I walk and view clips on my timeline. I use key number 2 to go to media pool clips and where I have clips that I'm going to use, and key number 3 to go to media pool folders where I have all my content organized. I have also added shortcuts for the various commands importing clips into the timeline. I go to my media pool now. I open a clip preview by hitting enter return on Loupedeck. Again, I can watch it, fast forward, rewind by turning the big wheel. I'm going to set an out point. When I hit key number 1, I will switch to timeline window. When I turn the big wheel, I will navigate on the timeline instead of moving through the single clip. I move the playhead to set a place where my clip will be added to my edit. I can set the playhead at the beginning of my timeline by using the select clip knob, which I use to jump between the clips. Then I use the insert function, which was mapped to a key. Now this piece has been added to the beginning of the puzzle. I can browse and add content to timeline using the basic insert function. I can work with in-out markers, and I constantly switch between the source, timeline, media pool windows, working just with the Loupedeck. I can also zoom in and out the timeline view. I can change playhead position to where I'd like to import the next clip. I can add clips not only at the beginning or end of my edit, but also between shots using the various import commands available in Resolve. In my preview window, I choose a part of it by setting in and out points. I use the basic insert function mapped for key A, and the clip will be added between the shots designated by playhead. Undo. When I use overwrite function, a clip next to playhead will be overwritten. Undo. When I use replace function, the next on timeline will be overwritten in a length of newly imported shot. Undo. When I use the fit to fill function mapped on Loupedeck's function plus C, the clip will be replaced with the same length as the one on the timeline. Undo. When I use the append at end function, the shot will be added at the end of my timeline regardless of where playhead position. Undo. So this is how it works. Getting used to these commands is very useful, practical, and speeds up the work. I will go deeper and I will work on a clip on my timeline. We have set the big wheel to move playhead on the timeline, but we can also use it instead of the mouse, so the adjustments made are more precise. So I have already a clip selected by pressing select clip knob. I will turn on time remapping mode. To do this, I will look for a function on CT touch panel labeled with time R. Now I will add a speed point here and another one somewhere at the end of this clip. I add speed points with my mouse. Let's change the touch button mode on the big wheel by swiping it. Then I can change the speed of this shot by grabbing a slider with the mouse and turning the wheel. It is much more precise than working with the mouse alone. This is how it works in basic mode, but when I switch to trim mode and turn the wheel again, the remaining clips on the timeline will also move along with the clip. Nothing will be overwritten or clips separated on the timeline. Now I can play this timeline part by selecting particle clip in out with X key and play it around from in to out. Again, I can zoom the timeline in and switch back the big wheel to navigate the timeline. So now I can smooth out these speed transitions. To do it, I launch the time curve panel. I have this on my touch screen and I just need to jump in there and select Show Curve Editor. I use the mouse to convert points to Bezier curves. I also change the big wheel to mouse horizontal mode. I hold this point with my mouse and move it by turning the big wheel. It should smooth my transition. I can now check the effect, and yes, it looks much better with these changes now. If I want to trim some clips which are already on the timeline, make them shorter or longer, or select another part, I can roll a knob with push and trim function. In this case, I can shorten this clip using a knob which will trim the end and move everything on this track appropriately. Trim functions are one of the most practical things we can do with Loupedeck CT in Resolve, apart from the possibility of trimming the beginning or end of the shot. It is also possible to trim the whole clip to change its beginning and end without affecting the length of the clip and other elements on the timeline. I select a clip and use a knob. In the right preview window, we can see the first and the last frames of the shot we are working on and frames of the newest shots. Extremely convenient, precise and useful function. Try the same with your mouse. I can do many other operations with clips. I have the Alt button under key number 4, so in combination with the arrows, I can move the clips on the timeline. I can move them to other tracks. I can also decide which track I want to work on and to which the track program should apply my commands. As in the example shown here, I turn off auto select for video track number 2. Now when I move the playhead to this empty space here, I can select this gap using X button and remove it using ripple delete function, which is mapped under key function plus E. The empty space will be removed without affecting video tracks. So as I said before, you can assign a whole bunch of shortcuts to Loupedeck, so you don't get confused. Start adding them step by step, starting with commands that you use the most. In my opinion, this is the most sensible approach. There is one more important thing related to edit, and it is multi-camera. This console can also help us here and significantly speed up the work. We can use the appropriate commands shown here in the device settings. We have to switch to Multicam mode, and now I can quickly edit footage from several cameras working only with Loupedeck. I can replace already made cuts by selecting the switch to angle function. As simple as that. Loupedeck CT is also useful for editing audio. When I select a clip on the edit page, I can control its volume using volume knob. However, in conjunction with the mouse, I can add and move keyframes and use the big wheel to make more precise adjustments, deciding which parts should have a different volume. The trim function will also work with audio. It is really useful when cleaning audio and removing unnecessary bits and pieces. I can add a whole bunch of shortcuts from color coding to flags or audio normalization. I can add them to touch panels. What's more, in Fairlight, I can use Loupedeck during the automation process. Instead of moving the mouse, I can operate the wheel and change values during playback, as you can see here. And finally, one of the most important parts of Resolve, the color page. The software was mainly associated with color grading, but it is no longer just a color correction software. We can professionally edit films and we can work with the sound. I'm now in color page, and of course, as I was jumping between cuts in edit, moving this knob to jump between clips here. We work on a single shot in color. Again, I have mapped some of the most used commands in color page. Of course, this is a suggestion and it can be customized to suit you individually. These can be related to adding the nodes, turning it on and off, creating the version or runner tracker, and many other. It can be autocolor, which is not quite a professional solution, but it can give you some suggestions on what to do with this image. In addition, I can, for example, create a grading version that I can combine and switch between them. I can turn the node on or off, add other nodes. Of course, many of these commands can be added to the touch buttons panel and switch between them if you want to have more of these commands. But there are also tools that require Loupedeck and a computer mouse, but nothing unusual. As Loupedeck has no access to Blackmagic API, we can't use color wheels. It has to be used with a mouse, and this is the main difference between Loupedeck and color grading panels. However, as I showed earlier, Loupedeck can definitely speed up work in Resolve in other areas, but it's also useful in color page by mapping shortcuts and using the knobs. What I have prepared here is an example of my workflow. You can download it and add it to your Loupedeck CT device. However, I think everyone should create their own profile reflecting individual needs and workflow. Bring up the most frequently used commands, map them on touch panels, knobs, and whenever you think it works for you, spend some time learning a device and it will pay off in your next edits. And finally, in my opinion, this device is very well designed, it is handy, it's not tacky, and it is pleasant to work with. The programming possibilities of the device are basically unlimited. The software is constantly updated, and hopefully Loupedeck will be able to access API as it is with Adobe. I really support this young Finnish company, and I have to admit that this device has won my heart. Thanks for your time, take care, and see you later.